Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. We are on the 10th bowl game preview of the 2023 bowl season. The first 9 games we have already previewed, but me and WillND, we're going to be previewing the Boca Raton Bowl between the South Florida Bulls and the Syracuse Orange. Both of these teams are 6-6. South Florida out of the American Conference, Syracuse out of the ACC. So right off the jump, you're like, Syracuse should win because they are the power conference team. But Syracuse didn't have the best year. They were up and down. They really struggled. In South Florida, they played a little bit better than some people actually were expecting. But you got to look at the opt-outs because that is very important for both teams. South Florida, they've got 3 guys in the portal. Gary Bohannon, the Baylor transfers in the portal, but luckily for South Florida, he was not the starting quarterback. And for Syracuse, they have 6 guys in the portal, and all of those guys are on the defensive side of the ball. So luckily, Garrett Schrader, their starting quarterback, he has not entered. Syracuse is favored by 3 points, so the odds makers are on the side of the Orange. Now, looking at some of the players for both teams that did play, Byrun Brown was a really good quarterback for South Florida this season. He threw for 3,078 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions on 257 of 400 passing, and he was a young quarterback as well, and he beat Gary Bohannon out for the job, and he also can use his legs. So Byrun Brown was the best quarterback that South Florida's had in a few seasons. Now, looking at running back Naquan Wright, he led the Bulls with 757 yards and 7 touchdowns on 168 carries. And wide receiver Sean Atkins at 961 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. So overall, South Florida's offense wasn't too bad. Now on the Syracuse side, Garrett Schrader, he only had 1,686 passing yards and 13 touchdowns and 6 picks. But his stats are low because he missed a lot of the season with an injury. Same thing as last year for Syracuse. Garrett Schrader missed a lot of last year for the Orange with an injury, and Sean Tucker had to really carry them across on the ground. But Sean Tucker was gone, and this year they had LaQuint Allen, who did a good job replacing Sean Tucker's production with 1,062 yards and 9 touchdowns. But when Garrett Schrader was out, not having his dual threat ability with his legs on the ground and his passing through the air, they really struggled. None of that was more evident than the Boston College game, where backup quarterback Carlos Del Rio had 4 interceptions and only 37 passing yards, so that really hurt their chances of being able to win that game. So if Garrett Schrader was healthy all year, there's a good shot Syracuse would have had a better record. Then you look at wide receiver Damian Alford, who led the Orange with 527 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. He probably would have had more yards if Schrader was healthy. Looking at the FBI predictor, they are also backing the Orange, just like the odds maker, 74.1% to South Florida's 25.9% chance to win. Now, looking at South Florida's schedule this year, they started out with a loss to Western Kentucky, 41-24, which is not a terrible loss considering Western Kentucky did make a bowl game. Then they beat Florida A&M. Got to win that game if they were going to be able to get to 6 wins, which they did. Then they lost to Alabama. A lot of people talk about this game and say that they played really well against the Crimson Tide. And even though they technically did, they still couldn't put up any points. And Alabama did not play Jalen Milroe in the game, so that definitely helped out the South Florida Bulls keep it competitive. Then they beat Rice and Navy, which were both solid wins. Lost to UAB and Florida Atlantic. The Florida Atlantic loss was poor because Florida Atlantic didn't even have that great of a season, and they got destroyed. Then they beat UConn. They had to win that game. Then they lost to Memphis, putting up 50 points, and they still couldn't win. Their defense really struggled in that one. Then they beat Temple, lost to UTSA, and then they beat Charlotte. So definitely South Florida didn't really beat that many good teams. They beat most of the bottom feeders in their conference, and they struggled against most of the better teams that they played, but still, they got to 6 wins. Syracuse, they started out with a big win over Colgate, not the toothpaste, but the team. Then they beat Western Michigan, knocked off Purdue. That was a good win. Garrett Schrader probably had his best game of the season in that one, winning at Ross-Ade Stadium because he was able to use his legs and he was healthy. Then they beat Army. They lost to Clemson, lost to North Carolina, lost to Florida State, lost to Virginia Tech and Boston College. That's when Garrett Schrader got hurt around that time. They were struggling, and yes, some of those teams were better than them, but the Virginia Tech and Boston College games should have been games Syracuse would have had a shot to win, but Garrett Schrader was not able to play. Then they were able to beat Pittsburgh, lost to Georgia Tech, but then they beat Wake Forest to get to 6 wins at the end of the season. Garrett Schrader returned in that game, which bodes well possibly for the Orange's chances of winning this game, because of the fact that he will be able to play. Now, it's going to be interesting with Syracuse, though, because Dino Babers, we know he got fired. Fran Brown's going to be the new head coach, but he's not coaching in this game. Nunzio Campinale, he's going to be the interim head coach, so it will be interesting to see how he does. He was the interim head coach as well for the Wake Forest win, so we do know that he already has a win under his belt, so that should help a lot of people's confidence in Syracuse and being able to possibly pick them. With Garrett Schrader playing playing as well. That will help. But Alex Golesh, she's done a good job as a South Florida head coach. Byrun Brown is a dangerous quarterback using his legs, and he is a pretty good passer, even though he is a younger guy. But it will be tough for South Florida to play against Syracuse, which is a power conference team despite the struggles that they had, even though Syracuse does have a lot of defensive players out in the portal, so that will help out South Florida. But me and WillND, we break down the Boca Raton Bowl and whether we believe that South Florida will be able to knock off a Power 4 conference team in Syracuse and get their 7th win of the year, or will Syracuse, without Dino Babers and with an interim coach, will they be able to get their 7th win of the year and knock off the South Florida Bulls to make the ACC look a little bit better during Bowl Mania? Up next, we've got South Florida Syracuse in the roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. What a mouthful right there. Roofclaim.com has got a sponsor for this game. The sponsors are getting weird. You remember when it was the FedEx Orange Bowl?
Yeah.
Like that was a wacky sponsorship back then. Now we're getting roofclaim.com. We got basically a website here. I mean, it's insane. These bowls by Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. What are they going to think of next? So Syracuse, they stink. I mean, well, let's just be real. They're not a good team. But South Florida is still not all that. Syracuse is actually favored by 3.5. But for South Florida, Gary Bohannon.
That hurts.
Did he play? I will say, did he play all year?
I'll look it up. I'm assuming. Oh, wait, no, he didn't play.
So he was actually benched?
Yeah.
What happened to Gary Bohannon at Baylor? Gary Bohannon was a starter, and they won games. I have no idea.
Byrun Brown started.
All these sponsorships. Who can keep up? I agree. It's insane.
Byrun Brown, 23 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Freshman's got the start over Bohannon.
But how did Bohannon go from starting at Baylor and winning 11 games to now he can't even start at South Florida?
Fall from
what
grace.
Happened? And then for Syracuse, these are all the guys that are in the portal for them. They've got 6 right now. No, offensive players. It's all defense. We're going with a 6-6, a group of 5 team, and a 6-6 awful ACC team. Syracuse lost to BC, but again, that was without Schrader. Schrader's back now, right? Did he play in the Wake game?
He did play.
He did play. Okay, so he's back. I'm actually, even though they got 6 guys out, Garrett Schrader is better than South Florida. He's actually decent. He beat Purdue. I'm going to go with Syracuse if Schrader plays, even though I think they're not a good team, but they're better with Schrader, 28-21.
Man, I thought for sure out of spite you would pick.
I thought about it, Will. I really did, but Garrett Schrader actually is decent. He is a decent quarterback. And I know their O-line's abysmal, but is South Florida going to be able to put pressure on Garrett Schrader in that offense? I don't know. I wouldn't say reluctantly, but I think Schrader's a good enough quarterback to win this game.
Yeah, I'll go 28-24 Hughes.
Subscribe and channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think that South Florida or Syracuse will win this bowl game and why, and what you think about me and WillND's pick for the Boca Raton Bowl. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.